So it's no surprise that the stock market took a huge beating last week, dropping over 10% in the span of 5 trading days. And this has resulted in a lot of investors heading for the exit door, trying to collect whatever gains they may have left in their accounts, and just try to really get out while they're ahead. And unfortunately, in some cases, investors are making the decision to cut their losses and sell out of their positions in the red. And what's even crazier here is if we look at the 1-year performance of the market, it is now sitting in negative territory. So investors that got in a full year ago are now possibly in the red in their accounts, which is 12 months of gains wiped out in just 5 days. But that's not all, because if we look and zoom out even further, we're actually back to levels we were at back in early 2018. So this puts us back almost 2 years. 2 years of gains wiped out in 5 trading days. That's absolutely insane. Absolutely crazy volatility that we're seeing in the market right now. And speaking of volatility, here's a chart of the VIX, which is a volatility index that is also commonly referred to as the fear index. Essentially, what this means is when the VIX spikes, there's a lot of fear in the market, a lot of panic in the market. And when the VIX is low, things are pretty complacent. Now you can see back during the peak of the recession that we had in 2008, the VIX spiked over 96. And since then, we've had a few spikes in the VIX, like in early 2018 when the market corrected. We also saw this in late 2018 when the market corrected once again. And then you can see here the most recent correction that we're in has the VIX sitting at almost 50. Now keep in mind, this level that we just hit on the VIX last week has only happened 2 other times since the last recession, so this is a rare occurrence. Because if you think about it in the grand scheme of things, this is 2 times that it's happened in 10 years. But really all this is telling us is that investors are scared, volatility is high in the markets, and right now days like 1,000 point upswings or downswings are expected. And obviously we got this last week with headlines like this letting us know how bad it was. Dow dropping 3,500 points in 1 week, in the worst week since financial crisis. Okay, so it was pretty clear that it was a bad week in the market. So what now? Well, what I'm going to do is actually share my thoughts with you guys on what I think about the market right now, what I've done so far with my portfolio, and what I plan to do with my portfolio moving forward. But before we continue, if I could just ask you to drop a like down below, hit that like button. Let's try to get 500 likes on this video. If you appreciate me sharing my thought process here, because I know these times can be tough and I know a lot of you are looking for my opinion. So if you appreciate this video, just drop a like down below. I would also advise you to share this video with as many friends and family members as you can to put their mind at ease as well during times like this. Okay, so first off, what have I done so far with my personal portfolio? Well, if you're part of my VIP group, you already know the answer to this question. I've been buying stocks. I made some buys early in the week on Monday when we first saw the first drop really, and then I held off for the whole week and made some purchases on Friday towards the end of the day, right before we saw that massive rally around 20 minutes before close. So I managed to get in at pretty decent prices there on Friday. I started off the week buying companies like Uber and Carnival cruise lines. I made a video on that. If you guys haven't checked that out already, make sure to check that out after this video. And my cash position really dropped from around 33% cash to around 26% cash. Well, after my purchase on Friday, my cash balance now sits at around 21.5%. So I did deploy a good amount of cash here on Friday as well. But the difference here was that on Friday, I actually deployed this money into different companies that are really considered high-end premium companies in the market. These are companies that rarely go on sale. These are companies that have extremely strong fundamentals. These are massive companies with strong brands behind them. And I have been waiting patiently for opportunities like this to deploy money into those companies. And when I talk about premium companies, I'm not talking about companies like Carnival cruise lines. I did not deploy any more money into that stock. But what I am talking about is these large companies that typically just trend up, 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 month after month, that rarely ever see any dips in their stock price because they're such well-run businesses. Really, the way I see it is that you have to take advantage of these opportunities where these companies that don't pull back very often, pulled back 10, 15, 20%, or even more in the span of 5 days. And although I did deploy a little bit of money into companies like Uber and 3M, which have been down for the last little while, I put most of my money into some net new positions, which I've never had an opportunity to do before. I've really waited patiently for this opportunity, and I'm very thankful to have this chance here to average into these incredible businesses and add them to my personal portfolio, which I plan to hold for many, many years to come. And really the bottom line is that sure, you can purchase businesses like Pfizer, 3M, or other companies that have been hit hard recently in the last few months. But what I really wanted to do here with my purchase on Friday was to look for companies that dipped purely this past week and purely because of this overreaction in the market, because I see those companies recovering sooner rather than later. But anyways, this brings me to my next position, which is what do I plan to do with my positions and my portfolio moving forward? Well, nothing's changed, guys. I'm still going to keep adding to my portfolio. I'm still going to keep buying stocks. But what I am going to do here slightly differently is look for great companies that have come down recently because of this recent correction. Now, of course, I'm going to keep buying companies like 3M because they are just incredible businesses and I'm seeing incredible value in these companies right now. But my main focus for the remainder of my cash that I plan to deploy will be on those high-end premium companies that rarely see sales. I have a feeling that a lot of these big companies that dropped the last week will recover fairly soon because investors will realize that we are seeing too good of a value here in some of these businesses, and they're going to start stockpiling into the stocks, and that's going to drive the prices back up to where it was before this correction. Now, personally, I may actually hold off until the end of this week to deploy more cash. Kind of want to see where the volatility takes us, if it starts declining throughout this week here. And if that's the case, I will probably look to buy some stuff at the end of this week, but we'll wait and see how that goes. So this kind of begs the question, what do I think about this whole correction that we just saw in this last week? And what are my views on the stock market really moving forward from here? Well, honestly, I think that this pullback was something that was expected and overdue. If we look at the chart here, we can see that over the last year, we continued moving higher in the stock market. And for the first half of the year, it was fairly healthy of a move because we were kind of coming off the 2018 lows, which again was an oversold level. Then towards the end of 2019 and up until last week, really, the markets just went on a tear in an unnatural move upwards. And the way I like to think of this price movement in the stock market is it's kind of like a rubber band. The further you stretch it, the further it pulls back. And if you see here, we pulled quite far from our natural movement and we were sitting well above all of our moving averages. So what ended up happening? We pulled back and we pulled back violently, and now we're sitting at the other extreme of being undervalued. The stock market always makes overestimates and underestimates of where it should be at. And as investors, we need to recognize these opportunities and buy into solid companies when times like this hit us. But now, do I think a correction of over 10% in a single week was warranted? Well, I personally think that a 10% correction was justified. However, the violentness and the speed that it happened at was somewhat extreme. And of course, there's a lot of global factors that are being thrown into the market here for reasons as to why it dropped. But really, on a fundamental level, I believe that stock market dropped the last week because it was just too overvalued and it was time for prices to come back down. So really, I'm not too worried here. I don't think this is going to turn into something even bigger. I think this correction was something we really needed in the market to really bring down valuations. I was personally having a very hard time finding great businesses at good values. But now if you look out there, there's tons of businesses to pick from. And this feels similar to 2018. But this time around, I learned from that past correction, and I have a lot of cash prepared to deploy in the markets. How long until we bottom here, or how long until we recover completely, are questions that no one can really answer. But what I am doing is just using this opportunity to buy great businesses, average into existing positions that I have, average down on those cost bases, and then just enjoy the gains that I'll see over the next few years. Now, one thing I want to address is that many commenters, investors, people who watch my videos always have this one common question that they ask, which is, why did you buy so-and-so stock right now when you know it's going lower, or when the market is most likely going to crash even further? Well, the short answer to that, guys, is that no one can predict where the stock market is going to move over time. And sure, we may move lower, but at the same time, we may have already bottomed here, and we may move higher from here. No one knows the answer, so I don't try to pretend like I do, and I don't try to pretend like I'm timing the bottom. I just pick intervals that I'm gonna average into my positions with. I buy, and if we go significantly lower, guess what? I take that opportunity to average down on those positions as well. That has worked really well for me. It's called dollar cost averaging. But if you want me to go into more detail on that strategy in another video, let me know in the comment section down below, and I can kind of create a separate video on my whole thought process and strategy on that, and how it's actually worked out really well for me so far with many different positions in my account. But apart from that, I'm going to keep my head up high, and I'm not going to pass up on this opportunity that has presented itself here in the market. And really, if you're on the same page as me, I'd love to hear what companies you picked up in the last week in the comment section down below. Hopefully you picked up some incredible businesses, because we don't see sales like this very often, and when we do, you got to take advantage of it. Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you stayed invested in the market here during these tough times. We'll get through this together, but either way, don't forget to invest positively. Peace.